About a week ago, Michigan's governor signed the state's Breastfeeding Anti-Discrimination Act that was designed to protect moms who nurse their kids in public.
Yeah, deciding where to breastfeed is one thing for moms. Others debate whether to do it at all.
They're back on this. Momaha Monday bloggers Danielle Herzog, Backhaus, and Kolene Moore is a lactation consultant at Methodist Hospital. Thanks for stopping by this morning.
Nice to see you again.
Thanks for having us again.
So what's the deal here? How do you think breastfeeding is viewed today?
Well, it's interesting because back, 30, 40 years ago, it was actually frowned upon to breastfeed. A lot of our parents didn't do it, and now it's kind of reversed in that it's so accepted in general and expected to breastfeed. And I actually had an opposite experience where I chose not to breastfeed and received backlash for not breastfeeding. Friends who told me my child was going to get sick if I didn't breastfeed. Things that I wasn't putting the child first. So it's really evolved. It's this changing world.
We're through that phase of breastfeeding now. I got a 2- and a 4-year-old, but it seems like the evidence was pretty convincing that you want to try to breastfeed if you can, because it's better for the kid. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Back in 1981, which is several years ago, when you look at that, World Health Organization came out with the International Code for Breast Milk Substitutes, and they said, there should be a code so formula companies weren't shoving it on everybody. And then in 1991, the United States adopted the Baby-Friendly Hospital Initiative, which was encouraging hospitals to support mothers in this, and there are now like 20,000 hospitals over 150 countries that have adopted that. So you definitely have seen this evolve. You're right. Back, as Danielle said, back when our mothers had us, most of us weren't breastfed. The formula companies were thriving after World War II. Women were going to war. And so we became generations, a few generations of formula feeding moms. And then has kind of, made that change and went back, and now it's very promoted. Healthypeople.gov 2020 has a certain percentage they want to see the increases to.
Anna, what was your personal experience? Danielle shared hers.
Yeah, I breastfed all of my kids, but I would have been shunned from my family if I wouldn't have. My mom's a breastfeeding specialist at Creighton University, so she's like super intense, hippie lady.
Right, so you really
I had no choice. And now me and my sisters, we all just sort of share each other's kids and breastfeed each other. My youngest sister was in town from California this weekend, and she has like a low milk supply. So my oldest sister, who breastfeeds 2 of her kids, was breastfeeding that baby. And it's just sort of a culture at my
Right. You bring up an interesting topic, because some people would look at that and say that's kind of disgusting. But my mom, she used to do that with kids all the time, breastfeed other people's kids. I mean, I guess, what do you see?
Yeah, we are seeing some of it, not a lot. We call it tandem nursing. Someone will nurse their 2-year-old and a new baby. We probably don't see as much nursing other people's children as maybe they have their best friend has a low milk supply, and if that best friend says, do you have any extra milk I could feed my baby along?
And then give them
yes, absolutely.
In terms of health-wise, it doesn't make a difference from the kid if it comes from the baby's mother or somebody else?
Well, that would be like mother's milk versus donor milk, and donor milk is a different mother building up immunity for her baby, but still healthier and still getting antibodies and that sort of thing.
Sure. In terms of sort of where to breastfeed, I've got a few friends on Facebook who are posting pictures of themselves at Memorial Park, out in the open, breastfeeding their baby. And there was this movement even here in Omaha where people were saying, this is important to me and I'm going to do it. I don't feel like I have to go into hiding to feed my child.
Well, I think
where do you stand on that?
It's a divide between how do you look at your breasts? Are they sexual or are they a feeding tool? If you ask a man, you might get a different response. But they could be both. And I think some people, that's one of the reasons why they choose not to breastfeed, is perhaps the woman herself looks at them as a sexual thing rather than a feeding device. But I think as a culture, when a woman's breastfeeding, there's nothing sexual about it. So I think if it makes you uncomfortable, you should be the one who walks away, not the mother.
I don't see what the big deal is about breastfeeding in public. Most mothers do a good job of covering up. I mean, it's not like you're seeing anything anyways.
Yeah, and any advice here, Kolene, while we have you? Danielle, she didn't want to breastfeed. Anna did and did. for moms who want to but can't, what do you say to them?
Well, and it depends on what the can't is. Is it low milk supply? Is it because she's had breast surgery and is unable? You know, we will support people in whatever works for them, you know. The other thing to remember, I always use a saying, good things come in small packages. And that being, if a mother has a low milk supply because she's had breast surgery, a reduction in augmentation, a lump removed, I go, you know, a little is better than none because you're still building antibodies in that little bit of milk. So can't for me maybe looks differently than can't for someone else.
One thing I did want to say, though, is I think that we have to change the dynamic of making a mother feel bad.
Yeah, for whatever
if
choice she makes.
Right, for whatever choice she makes. And especially, like, I have friends who want to breastfeed, and it ends up being a miserable experience for them. They hate it, they're depressed, they can't produce milk, they feel guilty. And as moms, we have plenty of guilt on our own. We don't need any more reasons to feel guilty about.
We had we had one that we were unable to breastfeed because it had some intolerance to the milk. The other one breastfed just fine. So I just
And there's even a connection, we were talking in the commercial break, to teeth sometimes. I was breastfed and my teeth were straighter than my brother's who was
I've never heard of
bottle
that
fed.
before.
I know,
Oh,
but
it's true.
it's true.
true.
They
Kolene
even
was
make bottles now, they call them orthodontic nipples because the original nipple, plastic rubber nipples were making teeth not come in
Great,
right.
now I have guilt that my kids are
Well, Danielle, just start putting money back for braces, honey. You'll be fine.
The other question we didn't touch on is how long to breastfeed. How
Yeah.
old should the kid be? We'll get on that later. We can't talk about it today.
Oh,
We're
but
running out
that's
of
another
time.
day.
We've
It's
seen
another
stories
day.
out of Europe about some of those moms.
Yes, we'll talk about that.
Thanks a lot for your time this
Thanks,
morning.
guys.
The backbreaker.